Your hosts are here, Sammie and Michelle. By the end of this podcast, you'll know them well. Adulting, navigating the journey of life. Careers to relationships, pain and strife. Put down the rule book, rethink the status quo. If there's another direction you wanna go, find purpose, passion and mastery in all that you do with Status Post-Adulting.
Hey Status Post-Adulting fam, this is Sammie
and Michelle,
and you're listening to the 77th episode of Status Post-Adulting, where we are going to be evaluating our money values. Isn't that right, Michelle?
Yes, we are, Sammie, and I'm so excited to talk about this because we talk so much about making sure that you're spending money on things that you value. We talk so much about how we don't care about what it is you spend your money on, but we do think it's important to pick and choose, but we really don't have a framework for it. So Sammie and I thought today, one of the best things to do is just go through our own framework, how we think about it, and hopefully inspire you to do the same, maybe with us, maybe think some of this through with us.
Exactly, Michelle. So we're going to be going through some common budget items, and we'll be talking about what we value and what we don't value, because sometimes it's a little abstract to hear that you should go through your money values, and we figure let's be specific together.
Totally agree, Sammie. And the thing that I find is that when I'm actually making a purchase, everything seems valuable. When I'm hungry and it's late at night and I don't want to cook, Domino's seems like a huge value for me. But the thing is that that's not always the case. And so I definitely want to make sure that I am thinking about it before so that I can just prepare myself if I do find myself spending money on things that are not valuable to me.
Correcto mungo, Michelle. Domino's is delicious and they have revamped their menu in the last decade. So if you're thinking, ew, Domino's, you need to give it another try.
Not to mention, Domino's is hometown Detroit pizza.
I'm not sure if that's true.
That is true. How dare you question my...
I think you're thinking of Little Caesars.
Both. Now I understand Detroit pizza. People are talking about Little Caesars and Domino's. They're not, just to clarify. They're talking about jets.
Let's start out with our big head honcho spending expense. Because, yes, we can get into the minutia, but the truth is, if you could make a big difference on the big things, that's going to be way more important than all the little small things that you can change. So that's why we're starting off this topic with housing.
So true, Sammie. I think the cliche title for this episode could be, drink your lattes, eat your avocado toast. There are more important things to think about.
Michelle and I are all too familiar with the housing drama because we used to live in a very high cost of living area. That is gonna put a number on your budget. So when it comes to values, you gotta think, do I really value the place where I'm living now? And I have to say, when I first moved to San Francisco, somebody asked me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are you loving life right now? And I said 10 because I felt a 10. I did not think I could be enjoying my life anymore because San Francisco was the bomb and I was absolutely loving it. But fortunately, hedonistic adaptation exists. And I did not have to think this very expensive city was the best city on the planet for too long. After a handful of years, 5 years or so, I started to see the negatives around me. One, rent is super expensive and sometimes not worth it. Compared to what I was paying in Charlotte, I was living with 4 people and in a kind of older home, versus having my own bedroom and 2 baths, including an Italian spa shower, for less than that in Charlotte.
It's so true, Sammie. Sammie and I can understand having exorbitant housing cost. And when it comes to housing, there are different things that you need to think about. The city that you're in. Do you want to live in a house, an apartment, a luxury apartment, a really good neighborhood, an up-and-coming neighborhood, a neighborhood in the middle of nowhere? Do you want to have roommates, no roommates? These are all things to think about.
Yeah, Michelle, that is so true. Because even though I'm a cheapo, I don't really like having roommates. I loved all the roommates that I have had in the past. But I love to live alone. It's just really nice. Like, you just feel so solitary, and it is a beautiful feeling. And of course, living with my sister Michelle is equivalent to living alone because she is pretty much the same thing as me. So it doesn't feel like I'm living with another person.
Thank you.
But yes, roommates is a big factor because you might value not having other people to live with.
I think this is really important, Sammie, because when it comes to your money values and evaluating your money values, it's okay to want the more expensive choice. So I'm the same as you, Sammie. I found over time that I just don't want to live with other people. It doesn't really work well for my personality type. I'm not sure if I'm a great roommate even. And unless I'm living with you, I really don't want to live with other people. And so when it comes to housing, that is a huge money impact. Even when I'm planning now, like I think about where I want to live next and I start looking at my savings and how much time I have with my money, I factor in how much it would cost to live in a 1-bedroom apartment by myself because that's what I want to do. But what I found was that it was more affordable to not have roommates and live with Sammie in our little small town. And that's why I chose to live here, because I could lower my housing cost, but I still didn't have to sacrifice the one thing in housing that was very important to me.
Exactly, Michelle. And if you're listening to us right now and you're thinking, you know what, Michelle and Sammie, you are so right. I am done living in this high cost of living area. It's not bringing me any more joy than a low cost of living area would bring me. I'm ready to make a change. Yes, this is not a simple change to make. This is a budget item that will require a lot more work and a lot more investment than the other budget items that we're going to go through. But at the same time, it will make the biggest difference. So if you're thinking that you can cut your housing costs down significantly, I would focus your energy on that one because that's the biggest one.
I agree, Sammie. A lot of times when people are talking about saving money, you can see people talking about penny pinching in different areas, and sure, that can definitely help. But the big thing in the personal finance space is if there's any way that you can lower your big ticket items, that will be 1,000 lattes at the end of the day. And it makes such a big difference. So housing is definitely one of those. It's not something you can necessarily immediately change, but it's a good thing to have in mind because then you can start looking to see, are there different places that you can move in your area? Is there a way that you can negotiate your rent out? Are there different things that you can be thinking of so that when the time comes, you will be able to make a change if you can? And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're just stuck in that situation and that's okay too.
If you're looking for another way for Big Bank to take Little Bank, cars is the next best thing. Cars and transportation, we should say. Because if you're living in a big city, cars might not even be something that you need.
It's so true, Sammie. And I can speak on that because as I've mentioned before, I've taken thousands of Ubers in my life. I've also spent a ton of money on the train, on BART. Public transportation is actually not particularly cheap in San Francisco, depending on what type of transportation that you take. And I think if I was better about my personal finances then, I would have had a giant red highlight over Uber and Lyft because I should own a portion of that company at this point.
Yes. Let's say you do have to get a car. The next thing is, do you value a super nice luxury car? Or are you just looking for a box of wheels to get you from point A to point B?
I'm a box of wheels girl, Sammie.
Me too. And we have some pretty nice boxes. I have my Honda Fit, brand new, about $20,000, which is a little bit expensive. But it's paid off now, and let me tell you, I'm not getting a new car until I need to.
Yeah, I bought my car used from Hertz, and I'm very happy with it. I would add in with cars that there's other things to consider. For example, I may have had a little bit of issue parking once and accidentally jammed my car between a car and a pole, and then forced my car to slide across that pole, creating a giant scratch on my car.
And you might think, man, those scratches are expensive to fix. We wouldn't know.
Actually, I do know. I did actually ask for it. I did ask to get for an evaluation. And I was like, nah, this scratch isn't doing me dirty. I'm going to leave it.
Literally, my car, like the back part, for some reason, part of the plastic came off one day, like I think in a rainstorm. And people are always like, oh, are you going to fix that? And it is so cosmetic. Like, I'm not getting my car a boob job. This plastic thing on my car that is deformed is a sign that I'm going to be a millionaire. And I would not want to replace it ever.
Yeah.
It adds some character to my car.
Oh, yeah. Me too. It's lovely. And honestly, a lot of people don't know it because they come in on like the other side of my car or whatever. I don't know. They just don't notice. Or they're too polite to mention it. Either way, not getting it fixed yet anytime soon.
And some people may be even more frugal than us. I'm talking about Mr. Money Mustache. Mr. Money Mustache is the person who popularized the idea of financial independence.
And mustaches.
He is famous, or some could say notorious, for riding around in his bicycle as a form of transportation. And you might be thinking, well, how does he get his groceries? Oh, he thought of that too. You know those little child carriers that people have that they put their kid in the back and they like ride their kid around? Well, he puts all his groceries inside that back thing and then he will drive that bicycle around.
Honestly, if you enjoy biking in a city, which I did not in San Francisco, it terrified me. But if you do enjoy biking in your area, it is such a great way to save money. You save money on gas, which not sure if you've noticed. It's pretty expensive right now.
Yes. So figure out what you value as far as cars go. Maybe you're like, hey, I really want to help the environment and I want to do it in a Tesla, which is also a nice car, which I like. And I'm going to spend $100,000 or however much on that. You do you. But maybe you're on the side of like, I really don't care. Like, I just need something that works and gets me there. Last thing you want to be doing is spending anything more than you need to on your car if that is your personality type.
Exactly. And look, we're from Detroit. Once again, we understand people who like cars. Honestly, it's actually leaving...
Not foreign ones.
We understand loving cars, and we understand loving American cars. Something that it bewildered me that the rest of the country didn't feel the same way when I left Michigan.
I'm like, oh, they don't have like a special American car to drive to certain neighborhoods with?
It's true. Not anywhere else other than Michigan. Moving to things that we do enjoy. Food. Food is a major expense for a lot of people, and there are a lot of things to consider. Groceries, even within groceries. Organic, humane, maybe you don't care. Eating out.
Maybe you don't care that your chickens are in a tiny cage.
Or maybe you can't afford it. They are more expensive. Apparently, not having cages is more expensive. Riddle me that. But yeah, with food, there are a lot of things to consider.
Yes, Michelle. Before getting into financial independence, Michelle and I'll speak for myself, I loved to order food. And I should say loved very loosely because I was really indifferent to the fact that I was ordering food, but I just happened to be ordering food pretty much every single day. And this was fine when it came to the Burger King chicken nuggets that I ate every single day for $1.06. Yes, they recently increased it.
That's a good deal.
It is a good deal. It's a really good deal. But when I came home and I decided that I want Uber Eats or DoorDash or whatever type of food delivery, it was not a good deal. And I did not value it in the least. And it was also super unhealthy. So needless to say, your girl got a little bit chunky-monkey.
I can relate to every aspect of that, Sammie. I never cooked when I was in San Francisco. I think it was partially because we lived with so many roommates for so long. And then for a while in San Francisco, you could get a $5 credit every time some new food delivery app popped up, which then, they got me. I was young. I didn't figure my ish out. And I thought I just preferred to eat out. And then after a while, I got tired of it, minus sushi. I love sushi. But I moved to Texas. I lived by myself. I could commute home for lunch. And I was like, maybe I'll try this cooking thing. And I actually really enjoyed it. And so for me, I do like cooking, which was a great discovery for me because it's so much cheaper than eating out.
It's so true, Michelle. And I actually find it really fun to find cheap ways to try to get all my nutrients in. I'm not like the most particular person about food. So I can come up with these creative concoctions like cottage cheese and sardines with a little bit of everything, a bagel, spice on top that I love, gives me tons of nutrients, protein, omega-3s, and at the same time is so cheap because I eat like 1/4 can of the sardines each time I eat that meal. I find this not just delicious, but actually super fun to plan out ahead of time.
And I, Sammie, appreciate that you have our home bunker ready. Other than that, though, if it's not obvious, I cook for myself because I think it's fun to cook meals that I enjoy eating. And that's something Sammie and I realized, actually, even living by ourselves, moving out of our parents' home, we realized how much we enjoy cooking for ourselves individually.
Mm-hmm.
I realized with food, actually, a non-money saver was that I like having control over what I eat. That might seem like a really weird statement, unless you're an Indian person, in which case you understand.
Yes.
Let me explain something to you guys. In Indian culture, it is the most offensive thing to not eat people's food. If you ever go to an Indian person's home, if they ever offer you something to eat, you should definitely say yes. Literally, you can't say no. You have to be very delicate about how you manage your food eating. It's an art. And recently, Sammie and I actually had the pleasure of eating Indian food at a home, and they offered to make us food, and they were really nice, and all of that was super generous. But I was like, actually, I like to control what I eat. I don't necessarily need someone else to be making me Indian food all the time.
Yes. Once in a while, of course, it's really nice to have other people cook for you. But I think a majority of the time, a lot of us do prefer to just cook for ourselves and kind of control what's going into our body. Living at home, that was a hard thing because we had our parents cooking delicious food all the time, and trying to stay healthy while eating that food, well, it's hard, let me tell you. But me making my own food, easy. I eat the same thing every day, switch it up every few weeks. Life is simple.
It's so true, Sammie. So yeah, there's a lot of things to consider about food. If you can afford it, some people like to get organic stuff. They like to buy things more humane. And some people, they're like, I don't want to learn to cook. I want to order my food and I'm good with that. And that's okay too. It's about your money values.
The next budget item is health. Things like health insurance, a lot of that can vary based on your workplace. So your workplace may have a certain number of plans, and that might be where your health budget goes as far as actual health insurance.
I'm glad this is on the list, Sammie, because actually when I was looking at my top spend for 2021, health was on there and I was shocked.
Oh my God.
But health insurance was a major expense for me. I almost always have had a high deductible, so a lot of times I'm paying things out of pocket. And, depending on your situation and your medical situation, your health costs might be higher too. So I think this is something to consider into your budget. There are different ways that you can control it, but it's definitely something to factor in because it does have a big impact. A lot of times outside of our control.
So true, Michelle. And long-term, taking care of your own health is going to make a big difference. Of course, there's a lot of health things that we can't control, but making sure you stay fit, making sure you're eating right, that is going to be not only good for your health, but also good for your wallet.
100%, Sammie. I would consider under health things like fitness as well. Like for me, I love going to a fitness class. And so I'm always willing to pay to go to a cycling class or a yoga class because when I have that opportunity, I'm always really excited to do it. And I know that it's good for my body. So I'm willing to pay a premium even to go to my favorite classes. Right now, actually, because we don't have any classes, I use a lot of free apps. So it's nice because I can maintain my fitness, but I actually don't have to pay for it. And if I had to, I would, but there's so much free content out there I haven't had to yet.
Whereas I am going to the gym. And it's not really a cheap gym, even though it's the only gym in town.
That's why it's not cheap.
That's why it's not cheap. It's
Monopoly.
It's not Equinox or anything, but let me tell you, it's not cheap. At the same time, worth it for me because I just need to know that I can go exercise at any time of the day, no matter if it's 115 degrees outside.
And Sammie, I think it's valuable to mention that since we were moving to the middle of nowhere, we actually seriously considered buying a Peloton or something that we could have in our house. We ended up deciding against it, mostly because we thought it would be an eyesore. But
Yeah.
that was something that I probably wouldn't have considered before, and something I know a lot of people purchased during the pandemic, because if you're working out at home, it might be worthwhile.
That's so true, Michelle. And another point, I think it's really important to understand your health insurance as well.
100%, Sammie. There are a lot of nuances to your health insurance and the different options that you have. Reach out to your human resources team, talk to your coworkers, because it can really make a big impact on your spending, depending on your specific situation, what your deductible is, whether or not you have an HSA, all of those things. So I just want to put an asterisk there as well.
Now let's get out of this boring topic of health.
Boring.
Let's talk about something fun. Something fun that Michelle and I really don't like to participate in, which is entertainment.
Yes, Sammie. There might be things that you're spending on, movies, subscriptions, etc., etc. Those are, I think, really good things to look at, because sometimes we end up in like subscription world where it's like Apple TV offered me this and Hulu offered me this and Disney Plus and this plus and that plus. Status post adulting plus. Who knows? Take a second and make sure you're actually using them, because that's a big place to cut.
And decide whether you really value other forms of media manipulating your mind and taking over and briefly hypnotizing you, and if you enjoy paying for that.
Preach. I remember when that used to be free. I do pay for a Spotify though. And for me, the $10 a month is totally worth not having to listen to ads. I listen to a lot of music, listen to podcasts on there. I'm happy to pay it. I debate it now sometimes. I'm like, should I cut it out or not? But it's still there. Love my ad-free experience, Spotify.
And I do pay for an Audible subscription.
Oh, shoot, so do I.
Yes, of course. I have the Libby app, and the Libby app has lots of books for free, but unfortunately, they don't have all the books. And because of that, I do have my Audible subscription, and I highly utilize it. So entertainment comes in many forms.
Exactly, Sammie. It definitely does include education, which was another point on our list. And education, first, it can be a huge expense if you're going to college or private school or something along those lines, or have loans. So there is education with a capital E. But I also think there's education like listening to podcasts, buying books. I personally purchased Masterclass and I've been really enjoying it. I recently signed up for a course and I really enjoy it. I have sort of adopted Ramit Sethi's mentality with education, which is if there's something that I'm interested in, if I have an inkling that it's going to be productive, I try to push myself forward to go ahead and make the purchase, because I'm somebody who loves learning. And so for me, it's a really good investment to make.
Yes, Michelle and I, complete nerds. We love learning. And really, it doesn't even have to have an end goal. But we just literally, we could learn all day long with no goal in mind, and we would do it. And so, yeah, we do spend maybe more than others on education for people who already have an education. I recently bought Paula Pant's Afford Anything class, which is the Your First Rental Property class, and I'm obsessed. It's so fun, and there's forums, and there's office hours with Paula and study halls. It's just like, how could I get this entertainment elsewhere? So I'm happy to pay whatever price, and I did pay quite the price for it, but for me, 100% worth it.
And Sammie, just like wondering, who was Student of the Week for the first week for her class?
I don't even know how they decide Student of the Week. Let me first tell you that. Because I wasn't even that good of a student, because I got my regular JOB getting in the way of me spending all my energy on this. But I was one of 2 Student of the Week. So it wasn't just me, it was me and another person. But yeah, it was me. It was us.
That's right. We got our little star here. So moving on, actually, to my top travel expense, I think last year. Travel. This wasn't on the list, which I was surprised. I think we live in a bubble where everybody travels. So to me, that's where everybody's spending their money, but I guess not. And I do value travel. So it's something that I evaluate often. I know it's a major expense for me, but it's also something I enjoy doing. So I don't mind spending money on it.
Yes. I do enjoy travel, but then for a while there, I was traveling more than I enjoyed. And then I did cut back on it because, yes, I like traveling, but I don't like traveling like every month. Like it can get to be too much. So now I travel like maybe like once every quarter, and that works better for me.
I totally agree with that, Sammie. Traveling, when it comes to a money value, for me, I think immediately I was like, oh, this is something I valued. And one thing I learned with traveling is just because I can doesn't mean I have to. I felt the same way. I felt really tired at a certain point in my life because I was traveling so much. And actually right now, when I'm not working and I'm living off of my savings, I am a lot more careful about what I do. I try to look at the aspects of traveling that mean the most to me. Right now, it's about seeing my friends. It's about being able to reconnect with people that I haven't had a chance to see. But outside of that, I don't really have too much adventurous stuff going on because I'm really focused on me, building my business, and focusing on that stuff. So hopefully for the next 6 months, it will not be as huge of an expense.
So true, Michelle.
And something I'll say about travel, there's so much even within the category of travel to think about. Do you like to stay in hotels, Airbnbs, hostels? Do you like to eat out? I used to always feel like I had to eat every meal out when I traveled. And actually now I don't mind if I'm someplace with a kitchen and can cook some of my meals. Do you want to take Ubers? Do you want to take public transportation? Do you want to rent a car? Do you want to use travel points? Do you want to get a travel credit card? There are so many different ways to think about all of these categories, and travel is also one that has a lot of subcategories to consider.
Next category, beauty. I would love to say that Michelle and I don't care, but we obviously care because look at us. And, you know, realistically, beauty is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I guess you could spend like a ton of money on it, but like even if you get like a few nice things, it's not going to really like hit the budget category like crazy.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel like really like a lot better, a lot more fresh, a lot more alert. So if beauty is something you value, you know, you do you.
Yeah, and if it's not, YOLO.
By the same token, you can go deep down a plastic surgery or work done to yourself rabbit hole. And if you value that, that's fine. But I think especially like now that I'm entering my 30s, a lot of people are getting like fillers and Botox and things like that. And I don't necessarily value all of those things. So just like really know yourself and know what's important to you before just like participating in these things that you don't actually care for.
Yeah, I will say, Sammie, 1, I totally buy into it. 2, it's totally a social construct. So there's no real value in it. You can see that and still invest in it. I think that's totally fine. I also went down a huge rabbit hole this week about how the skincare industry is a total scam. And it made me think for a second, do I care about anti-aging because I care about not aging? Or do I care about anti-aging because I'm worried all my friends are going to look young and I'm going to be the one that skipped out and I'm going to be like the granny next to my friends who all look like they're like 40. And honestly, I kind of think that was part of my fear. I think part of it was FOMO because I'm not like overly concerned about wrinkles and stuff, partially because I'm Indian. And if you know my mom, she looks good for her age, okay? Plus the number 1 beauty hack, no stress.
It's true. Leaving your job. I do feel like Michelle has reversed age since leaving her job. Meanwhile, I've been working and I don't like the disparity that's happening here.
But yeah, I'm Benjamin Buttoning over here, so.
But even Michelle has some gray hairs. It's natural.
No, I have none.
It happens. You know, we all can't be like Vera Wang, which we'll have to post a link to that because she looks really good at like 71. It's crazy.
And you have to keep in mind, she's very wealthy, so.
Money does help.
Money helps a lot.
Some other categories to consider is clothing, furniture, donations. Donations is an important one.
Mm-hmm.
Children. They're a big expense that Michelle and I don't have. But if you have them, you definitely have to think about them. Do you really want to be giving them the nicest things?
No. You could do this whole exercise with children alone. We totally understand that you have to think about the type of food that you're giving your kids, the clothes that you're putting in them. Safety is a big one. Childcare, schooling.
Private school. If you want to keep things simple like me, you can just put an X on that whole expense by not having any children.
So true, Sammie. And so takeaways for this episode. We hope this was helpful in terms of taking a look at different budget items and seeing, hey, how much do I value this? When I'm thinking about weighing this out, do I want this to be on my goods that I really value and I'm willing to spend more money on? Or is this something where I'm like, nah, it doesn't make my heart sing? It doesn't matter what the answer is, but it's really important, I think, to go through this exercise. The other thing is that the thing that Sammie and I have already done and that we preach is that you should track your spending. This list is partially for us based off of our spending. We know we spend money on a lot of these things, and these are the things that we think about. When our rent was sky high in San Francisco and we were living in a basement, we looked at each other and we said, we are spending way too much money to live like this. Is this bringing us joy?
Mm-hmm.
It was not. And so it's important to evaluate these things. And that way, when they come up, you know, I'm good spending on this. Or, hey, I'm going to prepare myself ahead of time because I know I don't necessarily want to be getting a free pizza from Domino's because I'm ordering from there so much.
And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rule book and rethink the status quo.
Hey guys!
Hello.
Welcome to Status Post, the episode where we just do a little chitter chatter.
Mm-hmm.
We tell you
A little bitter banter.
a little bitter, a little banter, a little bitter banter.
A little conecamta. Just trying to think of something that rhymed with banter.
No, I'm glad that you chose to sing that. That's good. That's like the fun stuff that would have got edited out originally.
Kantar, singing. Lost on you.
Sammie, something that did have you singing this past week was very small thing. I woke up in the morning. I saw Sammie taking the vacuum cleaner to the dryer because she was upset with how much lint was in our little lint thing, the little lint catcher. Later, when I was doing my laundry, I walked in front of her and I was just chatting casually. And then it's 2 layers, which makes it difficult to get into the depths of our lint trapper. And I popped it open and oh my God, people, her eyes, huge.
I was in shock. I did not know that thing could open like that. And that's the kind of thing you'd wish you known, you really wish you knew, because I was like shoving my hand in there trying to get all the lint, and then I just saw her pop it open and I was like, oh my God. It's like when our cousin Julie told me that they have specific devices just to clean out all the lint canals within the dryer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. It's like there's like a long dusty thing and like a thing you can attach to a vacuum, like a vacuum specifically for cleaning out the lint all the way down there. And let me tell you, this is the first time I've had to buy a washing machine and dryer, and I have never been so protective over these machines. They are not cheap, and I'm like, this is like a lot of money, and I do not want lint being all over this thing.
Well, not only are they not cheap, now the only place to buy them has burnt down. So
now I literally couldn't buy a washing machine if I wanted to, because the only place where we could buy one before has burnt down to the ground.
Which is very sad.
Super sad.
And it doesn't sound like they're going to reopen. So if anybody is looking to open up an appliance business, we got a place. You're going to have the monopoly. Bring it here. You can be like our gym.
And the furniture store also burned down at the same time. They are apparently coming back, but that's another option for you.
Yeah. And if you're wondering if we think it's suspicious, we do. But we don't know anything, so.
We don't know enough about this town to know what's going on, but let me tell you, a lot's going on here.
One thing I did want to highlight too, Sammie, is that we talked a little bit about this in the episode, but the Indian people of our small town invited us over for dinner, which was so sweet.
It was so sweet. Turns out all the Indian people of our town are friends with each other.
Surprise.
Like, literally, we were there, and then, like, new people were popping up, and we were like, dang, other Indian people are popping up here? It was like a sitcom.
Literally.
Where, like, people, like, open the front door, and they're like, hello! And we're like, what? Another Indian person?
Yeah, and they made us so much food. They were so nice. Apparently, they used to own the Indian restaurant here, actually. And I think they were just excited that we were in town. They did, I do think, underestimated our age. People think we're like orphans that moved to this small town and are just like working.
We're emancipated young adults.
And like they would be like, we can make food for you every week. And I was like, we're like, that's very kind, but we are adult women. We can cook for ourselves. And they're like, don't even bother learning how to cook Indian food. We'll make it for you. We'll make you samosas. Just pop over anytime. I'm like, this is extremely generous.
Who could say no to samosas, though?
That is true. It is very hard to say no to samosas. I was like, if y'all make samosas, call your girl over, because I don't know. That is far on my to-do list in terms of learning to cook. Not too far, hopefully. One day, maybe, but we'll see. But yeah, it was super nice. And Sammie and I had the opportunity to go and eat dinner with them. They were super friendly, and it was just cool, you know? Our people looking out for us in this town. Though I will say, everybody in this town knows everybody. There's not a person we mentioned that they did not know who those people were.
Yeah, literally. It's so funny because, like, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I work at blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh, I know blah, blah, blah. Everybody literally knows everybody. I've never been in a place like this before. It's actually crazy.
Yeah, it's really amusing. But all people have been really nice to us, which has been really good. And we really learned that actually moving to a small town, you think you're going somewhere remote. And actually, in reality, you have absolutely no anonymity. If you're two Indian girls that move into a town, people will notice.
Everybody will know who you are.
Yeah.
There's always people who are like, oh my God, that's you. You're the provider. I saw you at church, or I saw you at the grocery store. And I'm like, wow, they saw me elsewhere, remembered me, and now they see me here. They're putting it together. Very interesting. But now I see myself becoming like them. I'm like, is that a new person in town? I've never seen that person before.
Yeah, we definitely have those moments sometimes. But overall, it's been good. We're good here. It's hot. Very, very, very hot. Now that July 4th is over, hopefully the constant fireworks at night will stop.
July 4th is big here.
Every single down to the detail holiday is big here.
But July 4th like lasted all July as far as like how often people were doing fireworks. Because people here love fireworks. For a town where many buildings have burned, people love fireworks.
We must be in a no-burn zone. We must. Like, it's absurd to us. But whatever. We don't make the rules. We're not here. That's just how it is. Thanks, guys, for joining us this week. We will catch you next week.
Bye.